Hey there, welcome to this video that I've put together for the COMP1511 CS Paint assignment. My name is Andrew, I'm one of the tutors, and I'm going to put together a couple of videos to help you get started with the assignment. Paint, which is a painting program where you can draw pictures effectively on a canvas. The way that your program will draw these pictures is that it's given commands. So here's one example command. The first number in each of these commands says what it should actually do. So for example, this one here means to draw a line. The commands are then followed with some other arguments, some other numbers that describe what that command should do. So looking at this top one for a start, we've got 1, 1, 5, 1, 1. So this first number here, this one, means to draw a line. So we're going to be drawing a line from some point to another point. So these two numbers here describe the pixel, the location of the starting point, which is going to be described by some row and some column. For example, this one, it says that it starts at row 1, column 5. So if we look along here, row 1 is this one here, column 5 is this one down here. So this point here is going to be the starting point for the line that we're drawing. These next two numbers here show the endpoint, again rows and columns. Looking at row number 1, column number 1, gives us this point here. So that means that overall, this command 11511 says that your program should draw a line on this canvas along this point here. So starting at this point, row 1, column 5, and going to this point, row 1, column 1, inclusive. So after your program's been given this command, it will draw a line sort of like this green one I've got here, except less green and hopefully less squiggly. So looking at this next command here, we can see it starts with a 2, and 2 means to draw a rectangle, starting at this point here, 3, 3, and going to this point here, 5, 5. So if we look on our canvas again, row 3, column 3 is this point here, through to row 5, column 5 is this point here. So if your program was given this command, it should fill in all of these pixels here in this rectangle or this square that's bounded by these 2 points. If we have a look at this third command I've got written down here, it starts with the number 3. The 3 command means to change the shade. So the shade of the brush that you'll be using will change to be the color that's described by the number 2. So finally, looking at this fourth command I've got written down here, again, it starts with the number 1, so it's going to be drawing a line. It's going to be drawing it from the location 0, 1, so row 0, column 1, this one here, to the location row 4, column 1, so this one down here. So this command will draw a line down here from 0, 1 to 4, 1, inclusive. Of course, because I'd run this change shade command here, it would be in a different color, but I'm using colors rather than shades to make it easier to see what's going on in the diagram. Cool, so hopefully this is making sense so far. One thing to notice here, like I said, the first number in each of these commands says what the instruction is, what it should be doing. That number is then followed by some other number of numbers. So in the case of this 1 and 2, it's always 4 numbers. In the case of this 3 command, there's only one other number. And then those other numbers describe what that specific command should be doing. So let's have a quick look at the starter code then. You can download this from the assignment website, so I highly recommend, if you haven't already gotten a copy, download it, put your name in it, so once you've written your name in, congratulations, you've started the assignment. But there are a couple of things here I just want to talk about. So if we have a quick look through this file, the structure of this file, we've got sort of all of this starting stuff here. So this is the header comment, so remember you should always have a header comment saying what your program does, your name, the date, and so on. We've then got some hash defines, and these hash defines define the size of the canvas, the dimensions, and then the possible shades that it can be. You should add your own hash defines at this point here in the program, so you probably want to add some more hash defines as you go through. We've then got something here called function prototypes, and these just describe the helper functions that we've given you that will do some things that we'll look at in a moment. Moving down to this main function we've got here, we've given you some code for a start, so it creates a 2D canvas array. It calls this function called setBlankCanvas, which will blank out the canvas. We've got this to-do saying add your code here, and then finally we've got the call to this printCanvas function, which will print out the canvas. So these functions here, setBlankCanvas and printCanvas, you can then find at the bottom of the file. So this printCanvas function here, and you can read the comment to see what it does. So this prints out the canvas. We're printing out the integer value stored in each element of the two-dimensional canvas array. Then this one down here, the setBlankCanvas, which sets the entire canvas to be blank, so filling it all with white. So you won't need to change these functions. It's useful for you to have a look at them because they're an example of how you can write code that will work through the canvas. But these functions given you, they work just fine. You don't have to do any changes to those. So let's start out by looking through this setBlankCanvas function and seeing how it actually works. If you have a look at this, if you're not familiar with functions yet, don't stress too much. Functions are fantastic things that you'll get to know over the next few weeks. The key things you need to know here with this function we've got here, setBlankCanvas. So in these brackets here is the input parameters to the function, which is this canvas array, which refers to this sort of grid that you'll be filling out with your pictures. So looking through this, we've got two nested loops. So we've got a while loop on the outside and then a while loop inside it, a nested while loop. The code for this is pretty straightforward. It follows the pattern of what almost all of the while loops you'll see look like that work through a two-dimensional array. We start out by going int row equals 0, so making a variable called row, setting it to be 0, and that's going to refer to which of these rows over here we're currently looking at. Our loop condition is then while row is less than n rows. N rows is a hash defined at the top of the file, corresponding to this one here, which is how many rows the canvas has. So in my diagram, I've pretended there are just 6 rows in total, 0 through 5, but in the real code there's a hash defined for the actual number. So int row equals 0 while row less than n rows. We then have another variable called column. So int column equals 0. Col is sort of short for column. I'm going to pronounce it as column, but spell it as col. And then the same thing here, while col less than n cols, and so that's this dimension over here. We then have the key part of the code here, which is saying canvas at position row and column is going to be set to the color white. So this code we've got here, this is showing indexing into a two-dimensional array. So it's got canvas and then the specific row, so that's which of these ones here we're going to be looking at, and then the specific column, so which of these ones here we're going to be looking at. So for example, if the row here contained the value 1, we'd be talking about this row here, so something along this row. And if this column variable here had the number 5, we'd be talking about something in this column. Canvas at position 1, 5 refers to this specific point right here. But looking at what the code is actually doing here, we're saying canvas at position row and column equals white. So row is currently 0, column is currently 0. This white is a hash defined in the file that we've given you, which is hash defined to the value 4, which refers to the color white. So this code would be putting the number 4 into the spot of the array here. We then have col++, so increase col by 1, so col is now going to be looking at 1. We put another 4 in this spot here. We then have col++ again, col becomes 2, put another 4 in this spot here, and so on, filling this with 4s until we get to the end. Once col is equal to n columns, which would be 8 in this case, because we've got 8 different columns, we then finish this while loop. At the end of this while loop, we have this row++, so our row would become 1. I'll just write them over here to help you remember. Col 0, row 1. So our row++, our row becomes 1. We then loop back around to here. 1 is less than n rows, which here was going to be 6. So we go back into the loop again. We then set column to be 0 again. And then while column is less than n columns, so while it's less than 8, we set canvas at position row col to be white. So row is now 1, col is now 0, so that's going to be this point here to be white, which is this 4 hash defined. Again, we do col++, so this will become 1. We then set a 4 in here, col++, this will become 2, set a 4 in here, and so on, filling this entire array with 4s. So this set blank canvas function gets called in the code we've given you. If you think about that main function that we've got, the very first thing in the code, well, first of all, it creates this canvas. And then once it's created this canvas array, it then calls this set blank canvas function. And so at this point in the code here, it's going to go away, call that function, which fills it all with those 4s. And then after that function is finished, it's now time for your code to do whatever your code's going to be doing.